Hello and welcome. This is Alchemistexe, and today we're going to be taking a look at Ankh and his Job Plus. So, I originally was going to do a review of Era first. That's who I said I'd do next in the last review video, but I have since changed my mind because you can't even get her Job Plus right now, so I'd rather wait for Ascension Trials to be in session before dealing with more global Job Pluses. Whereas Ankh's is still in session, so I want everyone who hasn't gotten him yet to definitely get the Job Plus. Even if you don't have him at all, or if you have him but you don't have him raised to the point of being able to use the Job Plus, I would say 100% get the materials, because this is a holiday type event being tied to White Day, and we just don't know when that might rerun again in the future. I mean, it will rerun, but it could, it could be like 6 months or something. So it would be a bummer to have to wait that long to use such a good unit. So he's a water unit, and he does mostly pierce damage, but he can also do untyped damage, which is always nice. And especially if you have his older Memento, that gives you access to a charge up, and being able to charge up and do untyped damage can be really, really handy when you're dealing with gimmicky levels and damage type resistances. So if it's an opportunity to bypass that, you should always have that in your tool belt. He's also just really good at killing fire units. He's got lots of strong versus fire built into his kit. It's built into his base leader skill. So really good to have sometimes if, maybe you're against a fire boss or something, or just a level where all the enemies are all the enemies you need to kill really quickly are fire. He can be great for that too. He's also got a pretty cool shield that he can put on himself and allies for physical damage. So a little bit of utility therein as well. The only thing that I would say about him, and I mentioned this in a previous video, is that he is not Gerald. He is not nearly as just ridiculously, in my opinion, overpowered, but it's nice because he's a free-to-play friendly unit, so I'm okay with it. He's not to that level. He's a little more specialized. He doesn't have like something crazy like a big HP drain, but what he does have is a charge up and skills that can crit and do big multi-hit, so he does have a lot going on in his favor, even if I wouldn't call him broken. In fact, I would say that he is a very good choice for a 5-star unit selector ticket if you already have Gerald and you have all the Veda Templars, depending on what your needs are, of course. But I'd say if you're not sure who to get after that point, I'd say he'd be a good contender for that. So all in all, that is about it for the intro spiel. Oh, one more thing. If you are still in the process of getting his Job Plus, make sure that you finish up before 11 p.m. tomorrow, which will be the Wednesday the 24th, because maintenance is going to start 2 hours before reset. So that would be 11 p.m. Pacific time. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go take a look at Ankh on the status screen. Okay, one quick thing before we get to Ankh. Kasumi is also going away, like the Dark Phantom event, and then thus everything you need to get her and raise her. So be sure to get the shards that you need from the celebration quest. The challenge board will give you the special statues she needs for enlightenment. Repeating the celebration quest and getting the milestones will give you her second memento. Then you can get this fabulous looking skin as well. So if she's a unit that you want to have and you want to have like as raised as possible, make sure you finish that before the 11 p.m. maintenance tomorrow, because we don't know when this is coming back. It might not come back, or it might be a really, really long time. Dark Phantoms is a very, very rare event, so just keep that in mind. Also, Gumi fixed multiplay. It's been almost a week. All right, now let's get back to Ankh. So Ankh is in a very interesting place water-wise, because it is definitely like not the most free-to-play friendly unit, at least on the physical side of things. And there's just not a lot of pierce units in general. I mean, there's Lamia. Lamia is definitely good, but it's not like there's a huge line of competition for resources when it comes to water physical, especially water pierce physical. So there is that, and there are literally no other water Gunlancers, so he's definitely in a league of his own in that regard. So as far as abilities go, I would say the sub should, in most cases, be just the Gunlancer. The reactive is a choice between being able to counter or just being tankier and guarding damage. Depends on the map, and I will say that if you want the damage from Trimutachop to be good, you're going to have to use the charge up, but it can be nice anyway because it can stun. And then for passives, I'd say definitely have his Gate 2 for sure. And then whether you use Overdrive or Water Strike God Neptune, it depends on the elements of the enemies that you're fighting. If you're fighting all fire, I would say go for the Snowball and get the Strong versus Fire, the Pierce mod, and the crit damage. And then use your water skills that can crit, and you'll probably come out of it better than you would have, even though the P attack is noticeably higher when you have Overdrive. But if it's just a rainbow of enemies and there's nothing particularly, or like the strongest enemies you have to fight are not fire, then you probably just want the upfront higher P attack. Let me show you the difference. So yeah, he's like 1194 versus like 1572. So it's a noticeable difference, but it's going to depend on the stage. As far as Mementos goes, he has 3 right now. I haven't gotten his Gate 6 just because of Foxes have been a little bit scarce for me because I haven't been getting as many from the box events because a lot of them are pre-Gate 6. And then without access to multiplay, I can't just spam them when I need them. So I'm being very conservative with Foxes right now. I would say his Gate 6 is worth getting though, so don't let my current Ankh mislead you there. So his 4-star Memento isn't going to give you anything too amazing, but if you've got Gate 6 on him, might as well pop it on him on the sub slot and just get a little extra stats out of it. It gives an okay VCR. A little bit hard to slot on him because I prefer Ramses' VCR if he's going to be doing the majority of the killing in a map to just keep his Pierce mod going up and up. And the HP drain, it's hard to make it useful. You could like charge up and do an HP drain, but I'd rather just stick regen armor and not worry about HP as much. But his 5-star normal pool Memento is really good, in my opinion. There's 2 reasons for that. First, just stats that you want and a vision ability that will not trigger reactions. Those are always good to have in certain situations. The leader skill's not bad. I don't think there's enough desert Pierce units. There's like him and Ramses. So it'd be hard to get full synergy out of the leader skill, but if you have other random Pierce units and you want to just run an all Pierce team and you can afford for them not to have their own Mementos, then that could be a pretty good leader skill. But the other reason that I think that his normal pool Memento is so great is the VCR. In addition to giving you dual auto charge and having good stats, the triple P attack charge up it just gives him access to a whole new layer of damage. So I would definitely consider it like a must-have Memento. And luckily, it's an old enough Memento that should you get a 5-star selector, it'll definitely be an option. And I think it's 100% a good choice to get if you don't have it. Especially if you feel like you need water, like your water element teams to be stronger in general. Like Ankh by himself, properly invested, will elevate your water team quite a bit. Maybe not as much as some of the magical units like Emrys, who's just absurd, but he is definitely a good unit, and especially good considering that he's in water. But yeah, let's talk about his enlightenment next. I would say just max all the gates you can. He is definitely worth it. You want HVP attack and crit, especially because now he's a crit unit. His gate 2 is on his Dark Wisdom, so you're getting max HP, P attack, more strong versus fire, initial jewels up. Just it's a bunch of things in one package. It's always nice. The reason I think you should get gate 3 is it's a very good, just all-around leader skill. It's not the most HP or all attack, but it's good enough, and it's especially good if you're on like an all-fire map. That way just all your water units with all their water skills are all just going to do that much better against them. Doubly so if you also have Letitia in the party with her fire exploit mod as well. 4 more stats, always good to have. So his 5, if you are strained on resources, either for enlightenment or shards for Ankh, I wouldn't prioritize 5 as much because it's only his shield. It makes his shield noticeably stronger, and I think it's really good to have. But if I would prioritize damage before I would prioritize defensiveness for him in particular. But nonetheless, I still think it's worth getting. And then 6, of course, that way you can equip 2 mementos easier. But if you're strained in that regard, then I would just say 4 out of 5 is good there too. His limited memento it's what I would call good, but I wouldn't call it must have. You will get things that you want, like Pierce mod out of it. And it also gives a VCR that will give you tons of HP and then also make you immune to daze upon entering the map for the first few turns. It's definitely good stuff, but I wouldn't say he needs it to be good. It's just a little bit extra. And if you did max limit break it, that would give you skill use +1, which he definitely would love to have, especially with his charge up and especially with his single target multi-hit that can crit. But that's a lot of resources, so it might not be worth it for most people. There's a lot of competition for reliefs as far as getting certain leader skills, that kind of thing. So definitely not must have, but if you do have it, cool. So yeah, that's it for him on the status screen. So next up, let's go into the training dummy and take a look at his moves individually. Okay, so welcome to the new training grounds. Now there are one enemy of each element, so as far as testing goes, that actually is a bit nicer. So we can see how he does against enemies of different types. But yeah, let's get into his moves. So first of all, we've got Fierce Water Lance Triton, which is a pierce attack on enemy units, and it'll move them 1 square back, and it can crit, and it'll raise its own crit rate. So take note of that, because you could use that to get your crit rate up, then charge up, then use one of his bigger nukes, and just more crits the merrier, especially on the multi-hit. But just by itself, you're looking at about 9k for the fire guy, and about 3.4. So yeah, that's pretty big difference, and a lot of that is the strong versus fire just built into his kit all over the place. It really makes a difference. So he's definitely a good fire slayer. Next up, we got a pretty typical Gunlancer move, the bind and daze units in the target area. Might as well. Not reason to do that because they're not going to move anyway, but or act. But good when CC is viable. Next up is his solid Achilles formation, and this is what his gate 5 changes. So I think the shield range was like 10 to 30% reduction, and gate 5 will take it up to 60%. So nothing is going to attack us, but that's not going to stop us from using this move. Alright, now he's going to take 60% less of the 0 damage he's going to take from this map. That was probably a waste of a turn, because they do still get turns. I don't know, they could have... I don't see why they couldn't have just made it like 0 agility and have them never get CT, but oh well, maybe there's a reason for it. I guess you can test out poison damage that way. I don't know. Finally, but second to finally, we have his pure water cannon Marduk, and this is the strong, like the untyped Gunlancer type move. It'll move the targets back, which is always fun. This can be a good option for his charge up, depending. It's not the biggest AoE, definitely not compared to Gerald, but you could still hit a few enemies at once with it. And again, the fire enemy versus the non-fire, it's a big difference. And then this is what I consider his big nuke, and it's exclusive to his Job Plus, the Torrent Fang Calypso. This is a 5-hit with chance of critical, and so you're already looking at just 11,000 without charging up. So that's, I mean, against a fire, you're only looking at it's like 6.7k for them, and it's going to be even less for this guy. 45. Yeah, Not bad, but definitely he's just so much better when he's fighting fire units. And then you have the typical chariot wheel that Gunlancers have where they increase their own CT. If you're traveling and you got the MP to spare, makes your move a little cheaper, otherwise nothing too amazing. Then we've got a move to take note of. Another job plus function here is the Varuna's Fang Apsara, because this will lower Pierce Res. And that is always good. So, oh, and then he's also got Blood of Galatia, and it's, you know, it's not compared to Gerald's like Signet of Galatia. It's definitely not as good there, but you never know. Guts could be handy sometimes. And then on his master abilities, that's where you'll find his charge up from his VCR. You only get 2 charges of it, so use them wisely. And then you also get Prideful Wings from his Memento, and that will be the one that will ignore reactions. It's not an issue here because they're just training dummies. But as far as damage goes, about 15k for the fire guy. And then just against neutral enemy, 8. So now let's set him up for great success. So we're going to use the move that... Actually, no. We're going to lower their Pierce Res first with Varuna's Fang. Pretty big AoE there, but they all have to be in a lateral formation. You'd be surprised how often that comes in handy, though. Then we're going to use the Triton and get his crit rate up a little higher. I think we already... Or no, I guess I didn't use it before. I was just showing it off. Then after these guys are done doing nothing, it will be time to use the charge up. Alright, so now we've got crit rate up, P attack up, Pierce Res down for the enemy, and we are going to use the Calypso Torrent Fang attack, and now we've got 42,000 damage. So that's if it doesn't crit. It looked like most of those, if not all of them, crit. So yeah, that's pretty much him in a nutshell. It's not like a terribly complicated kit. It's just he can do pierce damage, he can do untyped damage, he can displace and do a shield. He can be a good option for a charge up nuker. And that's that. The main thing that just makes him so appealing is that there's nothing about this kit that's really that gating in terms of stuff. Like the only thing that's like truly limited is not necessary in my opinion. Otherwise, you can just get his shards easily. His Memento should be easy enough to pick up even if it takes a little bit. And that's that. You got yourself a strong water physical unit. So that is all for the review, and I will see you all next time.